For our next session, the games we have been playing. But first, our sponsor. I wrote down nothing. I forgot that I needed to copy and paste what I put above.
If you read the next paragraph, it has it.
Right, but
it has a
I
different
wanted to,
version.
Yeah,
Oh,
I created
gotcha.
a different version that is a little bit more my style, and I totally forgot to make sure it's in the games section, but that's all right. It only takes me a moment to fix. In fact, it's so quick that I did it while I was talking. All right. So, this week, the game section is brought to you by Asterion. They released the Aura. It's a universal VR headset, and as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, but for those that are like just tuning in on YouTube or something, this is a super cool product, and we're really happy to be showing you this one. Like, genuinely, this is a really cool product. It's a universal VR stand. It is it's kind of, we'll have like sort of like a picture or something. I'll figure some editing voodoo to get it on screens. But for those that are listening, it's got like a thin, slim black base and then an acrylic glass thing that holds the VR stand, and it looks super cool. It's and that glass bit has RGB lighting that lights it all up, but not like in a bright, annoying way like a lot of RGB products. It's like it kind of like, as the name entails, an aura. It kind of creates this aura throughout the glass, and it's so cool. RGB, so you got like red, white, gold, cyan, blue, indigo, a whole bunch of colors and an alternating one. Or if you just want to put this in like your living room and you don't want some ridiculous standout object, it's pretty cool looking just by itself as like this sort of glass VR holder. Well, it's acrylic. It also has a USB port, so if you're running an Oculus Quest or you've just got a whole bunch of things you need to charge, you can do that. You power it, and then it powers the Index, or not the Index, the Quest. Super cool. If you are interested in picking one of these up, they offered to us the code FULLDIVE. So go to AsterionProducts.com. Did I get that right? I think
Yeah, you're doing good.
Asterion I'd run off of, like, I have my text at like 150%, so that I can actually read it here in VR, and I'd gone past what I like had showing, so it was going off of memory. AsterionProducts.com. That's ASTERION products.com. Plug in Full Dive, and you will get $5 off of any order, $29.99 or more. So for those that are ordering the stand, that puts it at $24.99. I know we'd asked you guys to pitch in for the previous time we mentioned it, but does anyone have anything to say before we move on?
The fact that it's RGB, that's a huge selling point to me. Like, when I was looking at stands, and a lot of them are just very plain Jane, but there's totally stands out with the RGB. I'm a huge fan of it.
This is the number one seller on Amazon, and it's been going like crazy because of how much demand there is for this thing. It is gorgeous. It's an awesome VR stand, and it doesn't. You just set your headset on it, and it's just there. It's not something, because some of you out there who have owned a lot of stands like I have, some of them you have to kind of like put your headset in a certain way, you have to like adjust it. This one, it just pops on there. It's sitting there looking good, and it's ready to go.
Yeah, it just like it hangs on it in a way, kind of like a against the wall one would, but even easier. So like if I want to take off my stand right now, I would just take it off and rest it on there. It's right off to my left. If I try to feel it, there it is. And it's super convenient. And this thing looks great. It doesn't look like a lot of the VR stands just don't look good. And this
They're very
one,
bulky.
super solid. Yeah, really bulky. This one is like minimalist and effective and streamlined.
My VR headset has come out of the box and into the light.
Yes.
It thanks you.
Thanks to Asterion.
All right. So we've been playing some cool games. I'm pretty excited to talk about mine, but we'll start off with Jay.
We'll talk about script. because this is the newest and most exciting game in the VR scene and the VR world at the moment. Iron Man VR is out, fully playable, and I have been having fun. I've actually started doing some live streaming, which I'm not very, it's still new to me, but I've been having fun with it with Iron Man because it is really cool. You can tell this was not only developed for VR, you can tell it was developed for the PSVR itself because it looks really good on PSVR. I don't know how, we talked about this before, I don't know how the freaking developers did it. I kind of know, but they built in some predictive algorithms that give you basically 360 tracking with the PSVR. And it just works so well that I haven't been using turn buttons at all. I've just been turning in my living room. I've been getting lost in the world of virtual reality, and I have not had any problems with the tracking as a result of this. It's absolutely crazy. The game's $39.99 if you want the regular edition, $49.99 if you want the deluxe, which only gives you some extra Iron Man skins and some extra upgrade points to use to upgrade your stuff sooner and faster. So I personally didn't go for the deluxe. I thought save the $10. And then the minute I got inside and I could see Iron Man in front of me and I could cycle through all these different armors, I hated myself for not spending the extra $10 just to get a few extra suits. I mean,
That
the
sounds
game,
cool.
it's really cool. And the game style, for those of you out there who haven't seen it, you haven't played it, basically you are Iron Man. You're Tony Stark. You get to go through there's different cutscenes where you're seeing parts of his life, and then you get to get in the suit. You fly. You've got the different guns on your hands based on which way you're aiming your hands. You have different guns that are hooked to you. The Unibeam is back from, I think, the second movie it was in, and you're fighting off targets in the air, in the sky, above cities. You're flying around Shanghai and other places, Malibu. It is really cool. The action itself starts to get a tiny bit repetitive. I had to say one bad thing about it, I would say after a point, you're shooting so many things in the sky, like that part starts to get a little bit tired, but they built it so the scenes are so intense. The action feels so intense that you're in the moment and you're just doing it. I'm not a good one to answer the motion sick question because I don't get motion sick. It is pretty intense. I feel like if you have motion sickness, take it slow if you try this game, but it seems to really work well. And if I had to
Has
say,
Natalie played it? Because
Natalie,
she has motion sickness.
she does, and
motion sickness,
she
right?
just hasn't had a chance. She's been working like crazy. It's been
Ah.
sad. I miss her. I miss her even though she's working from home because work is nuts right now. She works in kind of not exactly the school system, but I'll just say that for ease. So there's a lot of craziness going on trying to figure out what's happening with this virus.
Right.
But it is so good, you guys. What have you seen footage of it? Did you watch some yet? How do you feel about it?
I've been definitely keeping an eye on Reddit in terms of like what are people saying about it. I don't know if I've been purposely trying to avoid footage because this is something I really do want to play at some point. Like I feel like this will be probably a quote VR classic in the sense of like what are the big games that came out in VR. So I want to play this at some point. And I spent forever till I finally played the Half-Life games, and same deal. I tried to like not see too much of it, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah.
So I'm avoiding too much in terms of footage, but I have seen a lot of opinions about it. So far, everything is super positive, and well, that's not quite true, but I'll get to that. The tracking so far looks very impressive. For those that are like, what are you guys talking about? Is the like are the other games broken or something? The PlayStation VR has only one camera really to track everything. It's just the PlayStation camera. If you guys are familiar, it's like the same one they released forever ago and was a total gimmick at the time. It was mostly just to compete with Xbox's Kinect. And but they reutilized it, and now it's being used for the PlayStation VR. So you've got like big old lights on the Move controllers, you got lights on the headset, and it uses those lights and the camera to get a sense of where you are in the real world. Problem with that is that because it's just based on lights and the camera isn't inside out tracking, it means that the moment you turn around, it's not like if you turn around and there's like then your hand is behind you or whatever, if the camera can't see the light, it can't tell where it is. And that's not a big deal for the headset because it's got like 360 lights and generally there's nothing blocking your head from the camera. But in terms of the controllers, it would get in the way a lot. So what Jay's saying about a predictive algorithm is that it literally guesses basically where your hands are, even though it can't see them. Apparently, Jay has some insight as to how that works. I have no idea. what Adam has said in the past about audio being voodoo magic. Was it audio? What did you say was
He
voodoo
said
magic?
noise canceling headphones.
Noise
Noise
cancellation.
canceling. That's right. What if noise cancellation is voodoo to Adam, then predictive invisible tracking for lights that aren't visible. That's pretty crazy. I don't know how they're doing it.
Yeah, that is.
Apparently, though, once you play the game, you get a pretty good idea. That's what I've heard, and I still struggle to understand what they mean by that. But apparently, it works pretty well. People like the fidelity, they like the graphics, they like the gameplay. Do you know how long that game is? Has anyone
8 to 10
reported
hours
on that? 8 to 10 hours, which is
That's decent.
yeah. For VR at this point, that's a
That's
full fledged game.
Skyrim. That's like
Yeah.
Skyrim to VR. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a Skyrim speedrun. Yeah.
I think I've definitely gone over the 8-hour mark on Skyrim VR. That said, this is, for a full, especially for a single player, the only other game that compares to this level of content and quality is Half-Life Alyx. It's a shame it's only on PlayStation, and I will forever hate Marvel for that. But until I can get my hands on a PlayStation VR again, I guess, or whatever, I'm like, if hopefully it's a time exclusive deal and PC gets it at some point. That said, really cool that it's out. I really want to play it. I have heard from some people that they weren't happy with the flying. Something about it not feeling a little bit. How are they putting it? Like, it didn't feel as free in the flying as they would have liked. Did you get any sense of that at all? Do I say that and you're like, I think I know what they're talking about, or you're like, they're totally nuts?
I really don't know. I think the only thing I can figure they might mean is it is open world, but I mean everything happens around a central location. So I couldn't just go flying across the world if I wanted to. Like, it really is, when you're in Shanghai, you're over downtown Shanghai and everything happens over downtown. Even though you can see city out in the distance, I don't think you could actually fly to that city if you wanted to. So maybe that's what they mean. But as far as like the actual flying bit, you're able to do whatever you want. You're able to aim your hand jets any direction and fly yourself. And maybe for some people that's just weird. Maybe they don't like that. Maybe they want to like fly where my face is aiming while I'm doing it. But no, I can like put my hands back and fly forward. I can put my hands forward and fly back. I can do whatever I want based on each hand. So it's pretty crazy how the flying works.
And does it feel very fluid, or does it feel like clunky, I guess?
I don't think it feels clunky. I think it feels exactly like I would imagine having a jet on each hand would feel like. Like, it's exactly, I put them back and I go forward. I put them forward. I go back. Like, there's a lot of momentum involved, and I think that might be throwing people off. But I mean, I think that's real. I think that's how it would.
Yeah,
really
I was worried that there was maybe a lack of it.
No, the momentum is hard though, like, because you hit your jets and then all of a sudden you're like ready to fight, and you're still flying away from the battle scene because you're trying to. That's one thing I think Iron Man didn't really show in the movies, or like when you think about it in real life, like. It would be hard to fly with your hands and then also shoot targeting with your hands, because like you're controlling your flight and then you're switching to your gun. So I found
multitasking.
Yeah, I find that I'd be flying and then I'd go to shoot and I was still flying the direction my hands had been aiming. And it was like, oh crap! Like, how the heck did Tony do this? Like, it's not easy. So that's the only thing I can imagine they mean, is like that, or maybe the fact that it's staying in a central location. But I think it takes time to get used to it. And I think once you do, you start to feel like a freaking badass flying around like that and firing. It takes.
Yeah,
there's a learning.
That sounds
curve.
Cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like they just need to get good.
I'll go into what I think is happening with the algorithms, but that's kind of tech mumbo jumbo. We'll kind of do that at the end of this game. So let's hear what you two want to know about the game or whatever before I get into that, because some people may want to skip it because it'll get a little in the weeds. So what do you two wonder or think about this game? Do you have any interest?
None?
Yeah, it's not really my thing. Yeah.
What?
Not too interested in this one.
I'm always surprised. Well, not necessarily surprised. I'm aware that I could guess that Destiny wouldn't be as interested in this game just based off her prior interest, but I still can't believe that someone wouldn't hear Iron Man VR and just be enthusiastic off the bat.
Yeah. I'm more excited about the game that you tried. So I can't wait to hear about that.
We'll get there.
Okay, Adam.
Yeah, I have no chance to play. I have no chance to play it, so there's no use getting excited about it. That's the thing. It's like I am only on Steam VR, I don't know, it's a PlayStation exclusive.
Or just stick to
I'm never going to
Pavlov.
get the chance to play it. You know, it's like this
You're
fracturing
just
is
gonna
making
have
it
to
hard to
visit.
get a. Yeah, you know, fine. When we get a chance to visit, I'll get excited about Iron Man VR.
We'll be like, finally.
If it came to PC, if they said, okay, after 6 months it's coming, how would you feel then?
Oh yeah, I'll totally try it out. It seems really interesting, especially flying around with your hands. It's something that doesn't exist in other VR games. The
That
part
reminds
about
me.
VR that I love. Yeah, I'm sorry. What's that, Destiny?
No. Finish what you were saying. Then I'll tell you at the end.
Sure. So the part that I love about VR is being able to experience things that you wouldn't normally get to do. And new gameplay mechanics is really cool and interesting. And being able to fly with your hands like Iron Man is something that's really cool. And I would love to try it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it
the
is
game.
hard.
Yeah.
I think as far as like what is available to other headsets that's kind of like that is, and I kind of talked about it when I was mentioning the Richie's Plank experience, but they have one of the modes on there. Do you remember it? Did you play that
You
one
switch to the
where you have
rockets,
the, yeah, you have like the rockets but you also have to put out fires. So you kind of have to switch back and forth from like a fire extinguisher with the hand and using it as rockets. But it's like when you said that, that's literally what I was picturing. And yeah, it kind of like jets you around and it's really confusing trying to do both at the same time. But I don't know, like I said, I think that's the closest I can think of.
Yeah, that was one. To the Top is another one that has like a rocket mode, only in like one level where you can fly around with your hands in it. It is very different, but it's like Adam said, and I haven't even touched on that. Like that's one of the times where it's like, okay, this only works in VR. That's the games we need, because like you can't freaking try to move your little joysticks around on your DualShock and like aim your hand rockets in a game and try to fly around and feel what this is like. This is something that's totally new to not just gaming, but to the world of VR even. So that's why I think this game, even though it may go on to be one of the classics, it may not, but it gives you an experience that you haven't really gotten to have anywhere, and that's what's awesome about the game.
Well, actually, have you guys played Stormland?
No, I've heard a few good things about it, but that's an Oculus exclusive only, right? So Adam's gonna get mad again.
Well, Adam has no excuse this time because he could totally play it. I'm still mad that you haven't just gotten Revive working. And I think there's so many great games you should be playing. And Stormland is one of them. If you haven't played Stormland yet, Jay, I'm so surprised you haven't. Dude, like pick this thing up and play it by next week. It's one of my favorite VR games. For exactly this reason. It's not Iron Man where like the jets shoot from your hands, but it's got a very similar level of once you upgrade your character enough, you're really flying around the map. And it's mostly through like a bit of a kind of a mix between grappling and propulsion. It's not true Iron Man levels of propulsion, but it's very, if I'm going to like compare this game without having played Iron Man yet, very much like that, where you get to really move around the map with a level of agility, I guess, that's pretty unprecedented. And man, it's so fun. So this is why I'm so excited for it. Is that because I'm like Stormland, but like more Iron Man as opposed to that game. Like Stormland is great, but it definitely shows its flaws as like it wasn't made by a AAA developer. And that's mostly just a little bit of repetitive content. But Stormland was an amazing game. That like Iron Man has to be better than Stormland, and Stormland would set the bar pretty high. But super similar, where you have propulsion and you can kind of fly around. You can't stay in the air that long, but it has that. So if you're looking for that experience yet, try Stormland. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Interesting. If you say that, it sounds like Windlands or To the Top to me, kind of, because you said grappling. Is it kind of like those games, or is it really more like rocketing? Because those games you shoot hooks out.
Picture you can like, okay, so you have this sort of interesting tether system that I really liked, where your play as a robot, so there's definitely some like creative freedom on what your character's capable of. Where you kind of like it doesn't shoot out, it sort of just appears. You create this like magnetic tether to to anything, so you can climb up cliff faces, you can climb up buildings, and you can really throw yourself around. And then once you've given yourself some momentum, you can use propulsion to keep that momentum until you've run out of like fuel or whatever. So you can you can like double jump, and you can use jet fuel. You can like you basically can do that like a lot of tricks where you launch yourself up in the air with a really quick tether, and then use the propulsion to like get across the island or whatever.
Okay.
If that kind of explains it. It's not
Oh, really
Iron Man
cool.
level, but it does have a like a similar level of your like I hope you have your VR legs ready because you'll be you'll be moving around quite a bit and it's so fun once you get the hang of it. It was the first game that made me realize that while it's cool to have all these quote immersive realistic VR games, it showed to me that perhaps VR really shines when it isn't realistic. When you can do things like tether at a distance and
Yeah.
like have all these weapons and stuff that like kind of like just magnetically attach to things, um and there was like a lot of not auto aim necessarily like when attaching to things, but it kind of the guns, like once you brought them up to center, it would just sort of magically snap to right focusing from your eye onto target. Well, not onto target, but like it would snap to your eye, so you wouldn't have to like carefully line up a shot. It was very easy to get shots in. Um, and a lot of stuff like that where like I didn't mind that it wasn't what holding a real gun is like or what actually grabbing onto objects and flinging yourself would be like. No one's actually that strong or that crazy powerful, but being able to do that in a game, VR really takes advantage of that.
Nice.
And that's what I'm hoping Iron Man VR captures as well.
Iron Man, it feels different and more exciting than most games I've played in a long time. I'll give it that. I will touch real quick on how I think they did this. And so for those of you who are like, oh gosh, this is about to get into some tech mumbo jumbo. But from now on, we're going to have chapters in our videos, in our YouTube videos with the timestamps. So you can jump right to the next game, skip all this crap if you want to. I know everyone's amazed at the table right now because I know of this.
We do actually, we're at an hour and 13 minutes. So
we're going to go quick. Okay. So basically a VR controller is usually tracked using 2 to 3 things. One on pretty much all of them is a version of light tracking, whether it's crap. Ooh, I shouldn't say crap. Whether it's not very good lights, as the PSVR Move Ball is, or whether it's infrared lighting on the Rift, whether it's actual lighting again on the Windows Mixed Reality controllers. That's only one of them. So when you turn away from, you can test this with your own PSVR. If you were to turn away from the camera, if you were to cover that ball completely with your hand, the now accelerometers and the gyroscopes are the other two things. They're still going to see where your hand is tipping back and forth. That's going to happen no matter where that ball is. And if you quickly move, it's going to get some sense of the inertia. And so Iron Man works so perfectly because when you have your hands down at your sides, you can't even see them. But whether you're tipping your wrist forward, backward, side to side, the rockets are still going to work no matter where the tracking thinks the controls are, because it's basing it only on the sensors that are seeing where your hands are. Now, same thing, if I turn my back on the camera and I see a ship out in the distance to shoot, the way they set up the HUD, your hands don't matter nearly as much where they are in the physical space of aiming because you have 2 reticles on the screen. And those reticles are actually what you're aiming with. So if my hand gets stuck down, but I'm still aiming with a reticle I see, I don't notice the fact that my hand is now sitting here because it's out of view of the PS Move camera. I only see that reticle, which is still being based on the movement of the direction of my wrist. And so because of that, you can get turned away and it doesn't really matter. And then anytime you actually need your hands to work, so like if I fly to a target point and I need to disarm a bomb, it automatically writes me back towards the PlayStation camera. It'll say turn, it'll make you turn physically back towards it and corrects you, and now your hands are back where they need to be. So it was perfectly designed for the PSVR in this way. The tracking works no matter what direction you're facing because they're basing it more on the tip of your controller rather than the physical space and aim, which was super smart the way they built that, and it works great.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Little peek behind the curtain there. So what game was Adam playing this week?
Yes.
So as opposed to maybe so right along the flying theme, I played IL-2 Sturmovik. And IL-2 Sturmovik is a plane simulation game, World War II. It's like a more realistic War Thunder, which we talked about in a previous episode, is my favorite game of all time. And this is a game, War Thunder really tries to be very gamey. War Thunder is more accessible, it's free to play. It has a bit of a grind to get to the higher vehicles. IL-2 is none of that. It is punishing from the second you get into the cockpit. It is a heavy game to learn. But that just makes it so that when you practice and get good, which I am not there yet, I haven't had too much time to play with it as opposed to War Thunder. But these more challenging flight games, the fun comes from mastering the hard systems and overcoming those systems to be able to do well in it. And I
Mhm.
gotta say, downing someone in IL-2 is way more rewarding than in War Thunder, just because there's that added realism and that added challenge there. It makes it a lot
Right.
of fun.
That
Wow.
Right.
sounds cool.
That's how a lot of these sims work is once you get good, the reward isn't like a little plus 200 points or whatever. It's the fact that you got good. And
Yeah.
being able to master the mechanics of a game like that always feels satisfying, no matter how many times you do them.
Says you
Especially
two.
when, yes, says us too, who like
Yes.
these kinds of things. That people like Dark Souls, hitting their heads against the wall over and over and over until they finally get past a boss. It's similar. It's similar, except for us, it's the controls. The controls are the boss,
Yes.
which I'm sure doesn't sound fun, but give it a try, people.
Oh, I'm so glad because Ryan was trying to get me to get this game to play with you guys, and I'm glad I held out for your description because now I have no interest in playing it. I'm sure it's really fun,
Aw.
but I just don't have the time, I feel like, to invest in a game that I have to put so much time into where I get good enough to actually beat someone and have that satisfying feeling you guys are talking about. That sounds terrible to me. I feel like there's two types of people that play those kinds of games. One is masochists who just love the punishment, and the other is content creators who hate the game but play it because their audience loves watching them suffer. And
Oh my
I
gosh.
really am neither of those types of people.
So you think we're in the former, the masochist
I mean, I guess so.
category?
I'm glad you like to suffer your way to mastering something, but
Mhm.
that is just not my cup of tea. But hey, Destiny, what do you think? Are you on my side, or do you want to go play this game for 40 hours and get good enough to kill somebody?
Doesn't require 40
Ooh, again,
hours.
I
yeah,
know,
just
it's more like
not
80.
my thing either.
Yeah.
But it does really sound cool. I can respect it. Like it sounds awesome. Just yeah, just
Mhm.
not my type.
If it's not a multiplayer shooter, Destiny's interest is just
And it's
never
yeah, and if it's not
never above
scary,
middling.
Or
I'm out.
horror.
Yeah.
Or
Or
horror.
horror. Yeah, a
Yeah.
horror shooter.
Yeah, and so this is a ported game. It's not a made for VR game, but a lot of these different sims, they're perfect fits for VR. And that's one of the things that I gotta say is great. And so I'm a big World War II history buff, and this game has so much for me to dig into in realism. I mean,
Mhm.
first of so the original IL-2s, they didn't have all these aim things. They just had lines painted on their windshield. And this has that. It was really cool to see.
That's cool.
But in terms of comfort, perfect comfort for a VR game. Of course, you're sitting in a cockpit, very natural. Uh, Supports all different sorts of features for VR. Like, it's just very natural in VR in a cockpit to look around, see your enemy, and
Right.
turn towards them. So, in terms of a VR game, I personally give it 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, this makes me want to go play Elite Dangerous.
Huh.
Elite Dangerous is one of those games where I like kind of get off it for a while and then I'll play it like I'll put an insane amount of hours into it for like a couple weeks, then I'll go back off it.
That's
So
me in
you just
Minecraft.
picked up, it's exactly like Minecraft, where like I'll be off it for like a year and then I'll have like a couple months where I'm hardcore Minecraft. You just picked up Elite Dangerous, so I'm
I
thinking
did.
we
I was
should.
beat into submission here by
Yes,
everybody.
I think we should set up I mean probably not tonight because Adam here always goes to bed immediately. Um, but this weekend we should definitely get something going. Let's
I'm
organize that.
good. I'm good with
Yeah,
that.
I'm down.
Sweet. And I
Yeah,
invite
but
you,
yeah, so you
Destiny,
get the
but
comfort. Mhm.
do you even have a HOTAS or a controller?
No.
We'll get to that, right? We'll get to that.
Right?
All right.
Yeah, but totally get it. So you get the comfort of old games like, War Thunder and now IL-2. It's something that's very new or very familiar, very old. But then you get the brand new games, Rip. So besides,
well, okay.
lingering on Elite Dangerous for years, what do you got for us?
Well, okay. Before we move on to me, I have to know IL-2 or War Thunder. Has it taken the pedestal spot, or is it like bronze or silver?
It feels a lot like And I know we make this comparison a lot, but it feels like Pavlov versus Onward. And so it just feels like a little bit more arcadey, a little bit faster paced versus the heavy realism and instant death.
Right.
And so I gotta say, it really depends on the mood. I would say more often than not, I'm tired after work. I'm going to sit down for a game of War Thunder, a little bit more relaxing. I know the controls. If I'm feeling in a little bit more of a masochist mood, I'm going to sit down and play IL-2.
You ran out of hard drive space. You need to delete a game. It's IL-2 or War Thunder.
I gotta go with War Thunder just because I've invested the time into it.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling. All right. So this week I played the game that came out last week, and we were going to talk about it, but we didn't have the time. I forget what happened. So no.
Sorry. Sorry.
We keep doing that a lot tonight.
Yeah. It's one of those days. I think it's because the seats are really close to, like, I'm constantly getting like the sit option. So the moment I know I touch my triggers, I'm going to pop up from my seat.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to readjust real quick if you don't mind.
No.
They're being very
Yeah,
sensitive.
I know the problem for me personally is that I go to like move my script and then I touch the trigger and it instantly jumps me up.
Right.
Because I try and keep my hand under the table to like move it. So that's what's going on with me.
Gotcha.
All right, I'm good now. Sorry about that.
All right.
And we're back.
Right.
So this week I played Phantom Covert Ops. We were hoping that that it would be Destiny and I, but Destiny is at a very busy 2 weeks, really. She wasn't even able to make it to the last podcast. So but we're glad to have you here, but you got to play the game. But next week, I want to hear what you think about it.
I know, yeah, because I've been like, I think this is probably one of the top games that I've been waiting for literally months now. So yeah, I am so excited to play it, and I can't wait to hear what you think about it.
All right, so I've been able to put in roughly an hour and a half, 2 hours of Phantom Covert Ops. Not due to a lack of time, but due to the fact that, just like in real life, kayaking is an exhaustive thing.
I feel like you should tell the listeners, in case they don't know what this is, what it is, because it's not
that
really
is a good point.
Hold on a second. Kayaking.
It's very different. It's such an original game.
So this isn't a joke, audience. The game is a Spec Ops shooter on a kayak.
Lost me right there.
No, like it's intense.
The game. So you play on a kayak going down a river, I guess. And you get now that I play the game, I can tell you so you have like the paddles, you have an ammo canister, some sound things, like not really a scope, but like a spotting thing, kind of like how Far Cry has like you can pull up the binoculars and it'll start like tagging enemies. Same thing, except it doesn't zoom in, which I was kind of bummed about. You have a pistol on your chest, a sniper rifle on the right side of the kayak, and a submachine gun over your shoulder. And you go around. Jay's shaking his head. You go around this kind of, I guess, river. It's hard creek river. And it's a stealth game on a kayak, which is super interesting. I really had no idea what I was getting into. I mean, short of the gameplay footage, but even with seeing the gameplay footage, I was like, how the heck is this gonna work? Like, I mean, first off, I couldn't, like, the idea of having to like put down your paddle and then shoot someone and then pick up the paddle and move again. I was like, is this gonna be fun? And honestly, it's pretty fun. It's a lot of fun.
It looks like it.
Yeah, you're gonna like this one, Destiny. For those that are not in the greatest shape, I'm not like completely out of shape. Like I'm not. I definitely am more out of shape than I used to be, and I'm working on that. But I think even someone, unless you're like pretty fit, I think this one will wear on your arms. Your length of time to play will vary person to person, but I mean, imagine keeping your hands up in the air in front of you for hours at a time. That's basically going to be the entire game, but
Yeah.
doing like kind of fake rowing motions. Eventually, I learned that I could kind of keep my hands lower and still do the rowing motions to cheat it a bit, but that's not as fun. um, so it's a bit of a workout. So if you thought, oh, I get to just play I finally get to play a game that's seeded and like a shooter that's seeded, and it's like what's the word, a stealth game. I get to finally like not work out as much. Nope, sorry, it's just it went from your legs to your arms. That's where the workout is now. Definitely a game that will get you. I had to take my glasses out of a headset to keep things from fogging up too much.
Whew.
It's not like Beat Saber, but it definitely like over time works you.
Yeah.
So super fun. I was surprised at how well the inventory worked, considering you're sitting down and you have to like reach for these things around you. Like it was very easy to maneuver between all the items. The way they work the stealth and the shooting. Well, first off, they encourage in the first place not shooting. So I didn't actually shoot a single person during my playthrough. I was going like
Wow.
true stealth the entire way. And I kind of want to replay where I just shoot everyone because I like doing that. But I think that, I mean, it doesn't feel like that's the purpose because there's not that many enemies. And I'm pretty certain with my my ability to shoot in VR or real life, it would not take me long to kind of blast through the game if I just shot everyone. I've certainly got the ammo to do it in the game. But I never tried. Maybe it like takes 10 headshots or something. But that said, it has a lot of it definitely rehashes a lot of like mechanics you've already heard of, where like they have spotlights, you stay out of the spotlight. If you paddle too fast, they hear you. If there's like tall weeds growing out of the water and you occasionally want to like kind of go under those. The kind of the cool parts that really were, I guess, exclusive of this game, where there were a lot of areas where you kind of went under people because they were all on platforms and docks and stuff like that. So you're kind of, while you're in the same environment in them, you kind of have your own underground world that you're interacting with as you.
Right, because they don't get an awesome kayak.
Right, they're not on an awesome kayak. You're on the
Jealous.
awesome kayak. Though at the very end of the game, not end of the game, the end of my PlayStation, the play session, there was a boat that had some machine guns on it.
Uh-oh.
I just stayed out of the spotlight and it was pretty easy to avoid, but I think that was more of like like showing what the next enemy is going to be like sort of a thing, rather than like that's what the gameplay's like, because it was in this like huge area and I could I barely had to try to stay out of its spotlights. So I think it was what's to come sort of thing, and I just didn't get to see it.
Oh, cool.
Man, I've just gotta say, my hat is off to the developers of this game for coming up with the most ridiculously sounding solution to the problem with motion in VR. I don't think anyone in the world has ever asked for a stealth kayak shooter. Like that is the weirdest sounding game. But
that's why I fell in love with it.
Yeah,
so
right?
different.
It's so
it's
smart,
just so
though.
crazy.
It's smart.
Yeah.
Because
I would have loved to see the meeting where this idea came up. Right? It's on the level of like Mario. It's on the Mario level. It's like, oh yeah, you're going to be an Italian plumber who fights a dragon. Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a stealth game, but you're on a kayak. You know?
Yeah, it boggles my mind. You said, Rip, you weren't sure if it was a creek or a river. So are you constantly being pushed by the water, or are you stationary?
No.
And you so it's not flowing water, so it's like stagnant,
It's
mosquito-ridden water that you are
right. Yeah,
in the
swimming
trailer
around
it looks kind of swampy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's super swampy. Yeah, you're pretty glad that you don't have any like scent immersion
Right.
things attached.
Okay, so not only is it a stealth kayak shooter, it's a stealth kayak shooter in Arkansas, right? So,
well, I don't know. Maybe I could have used some of the swamp smell to mask my own sweat smell as I worked in the game.
That is just the weirdest thing. I played a game where it was like it was called Differently Fast. It's in beta, but you like race. It's a wheelchair racing game. Kind of the same idea. Someone thought, how do I make the fact that you're sitting in a VR chair and using your hands, how do I make this into something? So I think that's really a cool idea. It kind of loses me at that. I'm like, man, that just seems so weird. It's hard for my brain to like. I'm interested in trying it, but it's hard for my brain to rack because I saw
Definitely
the
try it.
screenshots and I was like, oh, it's a stealth co-op. It's a stealth shooter, and that's like my favorite thing. It's not co-op, stealth shooter, and I was like, oh, it's so cool. I love stealth games. And then I saw the kayaking part, and I was like, what? Like it just totally threw me for a loop. So I'm interested in it. Don't take my joking for like any malice. I think that it sounds really cool. It's just one of those things where you hear it and you're like, whoa, I would have never imagined that to be a game.
It is definitely the kind of game that like that almost had to be built from the ground up for VR because like it would not work otherwise. And I want to touch on for those that are worried about like the mechanics. I've actually gotten into totally coincidentally. I've happened to have gotten into kayaking recently. I just recently picked up a kayak and I'm now reselling it because I want to get a different one.
Nice.
And so I had a very like I'm gonna compare this to what it's like to actually use a kayak. Having used one a day ago, and it well, first off, isn't like a real kayak. I mean, it like it definitely gamifies a lot of the aspects of a kayak, and by the time I was done with my PlayStation, I think that was for the better, rather than it being particularly realistic. Because a lot of like the realistic ways you maneuver a kayak either aren't necessarily completely intuitive or a bit of a struggle, I guess. Like it's not like that easy to maneuver a kayak quickly. And so it kind of gamified it. It was like you two, like if you just do paddle 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 left right, the amount of turn you do doesn't really depend on like how big the paddle was or how deep you went into the water. It just kind of was a paddle, and then if you paddled twice on one side, it would like do a set amount of turn if you did that. And then if you hold either the right button for the right paddle or the left for the left paddle while you paddled, it would do an even tighter turn. So it definitely gamified the whole kayaking aspect. I think that was for the better because when you're like doing stuff quickly, like a spotlight's going around, you only have a moment to like shoot through this black area and get underneath a dock to get out of sight. You don't really want to be dealing with a finicky kayak. That would be an absolute nightmare in real life. So it worked out for those that are, I don't know, curious about the kayaking mechanics.
I'm wondering how it's going to compare to the National Geographic kayak
Oh
that I was
yeah,
telling
that's
y'all
right.
about.
Well, now I
So
have to try
because
that.
I love that one. That's like one of my favorite parts of that game. So yeah, I can't wait to see if it feels like that one.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I for the answer of like them sitting at a developers conference, like what are we gonna make? I feel like half like it was a table split down the middle. The other half are like these like fit kayakers, like we want to make a VR game, and the other side were all these nerds, like we'll work with you.
The other half is
We'll
like
make it happen.
FPS people.
Yeah, some nerdy
That's what
FPS
it is. It seems
people,
like
and
a hybrid of like
we gotta find a way to make it work, guys. What if we do a kayaking
like
shooter? Also, I just want to. What?
I'm losing
You're cutting
your
out.
audio. Yeah.
No.
Oh, you're good now.
Okay. It was just for a moment.
Okay. Quickly want to say the shooting mechanics were also surprisingly good. Like we've talked about how games handle recoil. It was a very satisfying shooting experience. I only again I didn't shoot people. It was actually shooting like distraction things and like getting people's attention and stuff like that. I can't wait to this sounds so bad. I can't wait to actually shoot some of the characters because the shooting mechanics were kind of fun.
It is.
As long as you don't start taking your airsoft out in your actual kayak and shooting people, that I think we're good here.
You're like, it's okay, I'm just practicing.
Oh my gosh.
You should do that. You should VR. You should do that. I'm live streaming Phantom Covert Ops, but it's you in like your actual kayak with an airsoft.
No paintball people.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Oh jeez. All right. Destiny, you weren't able to fit in a game today, I presume.
No, I'm gonna
No.
try that game though. We'll
You
let you know
gotta.
next
You
week.
gotta. If it weren't for Adam here, I'd pause the podcast and have you play it for 30 minutes and come back.